Welcome. This is a short core practice focused on strengthening and stabilizing through your core, abdomen, back, hips and shoulders. I hope you enjoy it. Let's begin seated. So sitting up nice and high on your sitting bones and just bringing your hands behind the backs of your thighs. So you can practice with your knees and feet together, or you can have them slightly apart. It's absolutely your choice. Let's take a breath in and sit really tall through our spines, reaching the crown of your head to the ceiling, but allowing your shoulders to relax away from your ears. As you breathe out, scoop your belly button back towards your spine, beginning to curve and round your spine as you lean back toward a C-shaped curve. Your arms might begin to lengthen. As you inhale, try not to pull with your arms, but sit nice and tall, using the strength of your abdominal muscles and your deep pelvic core to draw you back up. Exhale as you curl backwards. Your chin can begin to drop to your chest without collapsing. And inhale as you draw from your abdominal area deep down in your pelvis all the way up to sitting nice and tall, shoulders away from your ears. Let's keep practicing. And breathing out as you curl back. And breathing in as you sit tall. Now maybe you take your hands away from the backs of your legs and reach them out. Exhale, keep reaching your arms forward as you C-shape your spine and curl back. Inhale, pelvic floor lifts, waist narrows, belly scoops as you come all the way up. You can keep working with this or with the version where you have your hands behind your legs, or you might like to pause, reach your hands across to one side, across to your other side, back to center, and then sit upright again. Curling back, reaching your hands across to one side, across to your other side, back to center, and upright again. Let's take 2 more of these. Feel free to do the other variations if they feel like they suit you better today. And last round of whatever it is you're practicing. And coming back to center. Beautiful work. Let's find our way onto our side. So you can come onto your side. You might like to reach your arm out and just rest your head on your upper arm. If it feels more helpful, you might feel comfortable putting a blanket or something in underneath, or you could always bend your arm, just whatever works for you. Bending your knees in, so there's something like a 90-degree angle at your hip, and your free hand can rest on the floor in front. Before we go anywhere, can you draw your belly back just a little bit, a really small fraction, and then feel as though you're trying to draw your top hip towards your feet, and maybe the lower side of your waist might lift away from the floor a little bit, or might begin to lift away from the floor a little bit. And then let's lift our feet up off the floor, but keep our knees down on the floor. You can flex your ankles, belly in, lifting your top knee up, heels can stay touching, and then squeezing your legs back together as though you're squishing a balloon between your thighs. Knee lifts up and squeezes back together. When you lift your knee up, is it possible for you to keep your belly active and not to move your top hip backwards? So you might not necessarily be lifting very high, but it's better to just go to the heights you can go to with your hips stacked and still, rather than leaning your hip backwards. Squeezing to lift and squeezing to lower, keeping your belly in, waist away from the floor if possible, and your breath moving. Where do you find it helps to breathe in? And where do you find it helps to breathe out? Let's take 2 more. So you might just roll over to do your other side, or maybe you come up in center and swivel over to your other side. Before you begin, making sure that you're set up really nicely, you have support for your head. Your knees are curled in towards you, about a 90-degree angle at your hips. Belly in, pelvic floor muscles gently active, and then pressing your hip away from your shoulders towards your feet, so the lower side of your waist begins to lift away from the floor. lifting your feet off the floor, gluing your heels together and flexing your ankles. When you're ready, lifting your top knee, keeping active through your belly, and then squeezing back together as though you're squashing a balloon between your thighs. If it helps, you might take your free hand and place it on your hip, just to notice whether or not you are dropping your hip forward and back, or whether you're keeping nice and stable through your hips. The movements can be slow, and they don't have to be big. We're going to go for quality over quantity. Keep working with a lovely active core, just gently active, gently switched on through your lower belly by drawing your belly back slightly, pelvic floor muscles on just a little bit. Keep breathing. Notice also what's happening with your neck. If you're looking down at your knees, can you look straight ahead? You might even have your eyes closed, so the back of your neck can remain nice and long. Let's take 3 more on this side. And 1 more time. And from here, coming onto your front, onto your belly. So as you lie down on your front, you can reach your arms straight out overhead, tucking your chin in so that your forehead comes to the floor and your nose is not squashed. You can also extend your legs away behind you, and we want to aim to be really long through our bodies. So before we begin to move, can you first tuck your tail under just a little bit, just a tiny bit, to decrease the curve in your lower back. Draw your belly up towards your spine just a little bit. And when you're ready, you can take a breath in, reach one arm and your opposite leg even longer, and then begin to float them off the floor. Maybe your head comes with you, maybe it stays down on the floor. And as you breathe out, you can lower back down again. So breathing in, you reach your opposite arm and leg long first, and then up off the floor, and then back down again. All the while attempting to stay really long through your lower back, trying not to collapse your lower back to the floor. Lifting your tummy button up to your spine will help, and a little tail tuck will help as well. Lifting as you breathe in, and lowering as you breathe out. If this is feeling a little tight or uncomfortable around your neck or shoulders, you could always take your arms a bit wider, maybe even bending your elbows like a cactus, and maybe that feels as though it gives you a little bit more space. Let's take 1 more on each side. And then when you're ready, pushing yourself up and finding your way onto hands and knees. If you have sore wrists, you could do this next exercise up on your fists, or you could roll up the end of your mat if you're using one, or perhaps a rolled towel or blanket, and you might just place the heels of your hands on the edge of the roll and your fingers on the floor, and that might just take a little bit of pressure out of the bend or crease in your wrists there. So checking that your knees are under your hips with a small gap between them, and your hands are under your shoulders. You could bring your hands and your knees slightly closer together than you would normally if you were on your hands and knees, because we're going to lift one arm and opposite leg away in a moment. Before we do that, can you just check in with your spine? So just noticing, are you feeling neutral in your spine here? Is your head floating, looking straight down to the floor, back of your neck nice and long? And then can you imagine as though you're narrowing your waist and drawing your navel in and up just a little bit? Pelvic floor muscles switching on slightly. From that place, you might begin to reach one of your arms forward and then bring it back down to the floor. Can you transfer your weight with almost no movement at all over to the hand that you just lifted, and then begin to peel your other hand off the floor and reach it forward? and bring it back down to the floor. Going back to your first side, using your core to stabilize you as you transfer your weight and lift your arm off the floor, reaching your hand forward. Bringing your hand back down to the floor and switching over to your other side with as little movement as possible and stabilizing through your core. Let's move to our legs. So moving your weight across to one knee, using the muscles of your abdomen, of your core, to begin to reach one of your legs away behind you, keeping it quite low so that you're not prone to arching your lower back. Bringing your knee back in, and can you transfer your weight again really slowly, keeping strong through your core, focused and attentive to what you're doing as you then extend your other leg away. So we don't have to move fast. We don't have to move big. We can work really efficiently and effectively by moving slowly and with a great deal of attention. One more time. So now you can choose. Perhaps you just want to cycle back through the same sequence again, or if it feels okay for you, you could adjust yourself, stabilize yourself, and then reach one arm and your opposite leg away. Maybe you've got your fingertips on the floor and your toe tip on the floor, or maybe you're lifting up, making sure that you keep your hand lower than your shoulder and your heel lower than your hip, so that you're not arching into your back and creating a hyperextension there. Coming back to center and extending the other side. Slowly, using the strength of your core. How slowly can you go? Don't worry if you wobble. Wobbling is great. It means that your body is learning something new. Your body is understanding and finding new ways. So maybe you're just doing arms on their own and then legs on their own. Or maybe you're doing opposite arm and leg at the same time. Let's finish off this round that you're doing. And one more. Don't forget to keep breathing. Sometimes when we're focusing and concentrating really hard, we forget to breathe. It's really normal. So don't forget to keep breathing. And when you're ready, let's come back to center. Perhaps you might take your hands and your knees ever so slightly, a little bit wider this time. Taking a breath in neutral spine. As you breathe out, tucking just your tail under and really sucking your belly in. And then moving your weight back somewhat. Continue tucking your tail, tucking your tail, tucking your tail. And then when you're ready, coming forward again as though you're being pushed from your tail along your spine and out through the crown of your head. Return to neutral spine, so releasing the tail tuck. Exhale, tucking your tail, sucking your belly up and moving your weight back towards your heels. As you inhale, imagine as though you're being pushed or shunted forward from your tail through your spine, as though you're pushing something with the crown of your head, returning back to neutral. Exhale, tail tucks, and weight moves back. Slowly, precisely. Inhale as you come forward like you're pushing something with the crown of your head and arriving back in neutral. Let's do 3 more. Moving back. And moving forward. Noticing how this is feeling in your body. If you're somebody who has a lower back injury and it gets worse when you bend forward, really making sure that you're teaching your body how to engage your pelvic muscles, your core muscles, while tucking your tail, which is often what we do when we bend forward. Yeah. So this is hopefully going to help retrain habits so that you recruit your core muscles when you bend forward to support your spine. This is our last one. Let's find our way back to center. So from here, let's come back onto our backs again. You can lay yourself down. And let's lift our hips up a little bit and just place our hands underneath our buttocks. Now you might like to have your arms almost straight so that they're just under the edge of your buttocks. And then you can bring one leg and then your other leg in towards your chest. So flexing your ankles and then keeping your ankles glued together but taking your knees and toes apart. See, when you look at your feet, there's a bit of a V shape there from your ankles to your toes. And then lifting your heels up a little bit higher. So as you breathe out, squeeze your pelvic floor muscles, activate your core, flatten your belly and begin to extend your legs away. And you can point your toes at the end. Flex your ankles and draw your heels back towards you, opening your knees out wide. Breathing out as you switch everything on and slowly extend your legs away, finishing with a pointing of your toes. Breathing in as you draw everything back to where you started. Now the higher your legs go towards the ceiling, the less you'll need to use your core muscles. But that might be where you're at today. The lower your legs go towards the floor, the more you're going to need to use your core muscles. And that might be where you're at today. But making sure that whatever you choose, you're able to execute the practice with precision, with alignment, with control. You'll know if you've gone too far. It'll get really hard. You won't be able to keep your core held. Something will give. Let's do 2 more. And then when you've finished, you can bring your feet back down to the floor again. Let's lift our hips and take our hands out from underneath, and you can bring your hands back behind and just place them on the sides of your head like you're creating little sort of spiders or kind of giant big earmuffs. Now your elbows can be open, but let's not take them all the way to the floor or point them all the way to the ceiling, somewhere in between there. So notice if you've taken your arms up overhead to hold the sides of your head, have you popped your ribs up? Have you lost that connection here in your abdomen? And can you just draw your ribs back down again, already beginning to switch your core muscles on? And then let's take the tips of our big toes to the floor. So you're pointing your toes and you're just taking the tips of your big toes to the floor. Taking a breath into your rib cage. As you breathe out, switch your core muscles on, reach one of your legs up to the ceiling, lift your head and shoulders off the floor, gazing up to your ankle. Slowly lowering your foot and your head and shoulders back down to the floor. Nice and stable. Exhale as you tighten your waist, pelvic floor on, belly flattening down, leg extends. Inhale as you come back to center. Now you can choose, you might like to reach one of your arms, your opposite arm, up towards your leg and maybe take a little twist towards the side or a lean towards your side and then come back to center. Or you can stay with the first version of the practice. Maybe you're reaching your arm up and taking a little lean over towards the side so you catch your waist muscles here as well, your obliques. Remember to breathe out as you make effort, lifting, belly flattens, and breathe in as you come back to center. Keep going. Taking one more round. And then when you're ready, coming all the way back and letting yourself take rest. So you can choose how this resting shape might look. Maybe you step your feet a bit wider than your hips and let your knees knock in towards each other. Maybe you take some slow rocking of your head from side to side and allow your arms to rest on the floor. Maybe you take the soles of your feet together and knees out wide, and maybe you want to rest your hands on your belly and take some deep round belly breaths. Or maybe you just feel like extending your legs out long and resting in Shavasana. Whatever you choose, can you invite your body to fully let go of all of the work and the effort, the control and precision that you've been practicing? And these qualities that you've been inviting into your practice today are really helpful for us in our lives. So sometimes we need to be able to control, sometimes we need to be precise, sometimes we need to align ourselves with something. And it's also equally important to be able to let go of these qualities, to be able to invite a sense of softening, a sense of acceptance, and a sense of being with yourself as you are, being with what is as it is. So perhaps you might spend a few more moments doing just that, noticing your breath, allowing your body to become heavier with each breath out, softening, deepening, and widening. So perhaps this is the end of your practice today, and you might choose to stay here for a few more moments before making your way off your mat and into your day. Or perhaps you're adding in another one of the pick and mix yoga snacks that I've created into this part of your practice. Whatever you're choosing, I hope you find it helpful. Namaste.